One, Bill Stanley, State Senator, Republican, Franklin, that's District 20, joining us now. Senator, good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, John. I'm sorry under such circumstances, but it's always good to hear your voice.
Okay, I want you to share with our audience, Senator, what happened to you yesterday, and this was also reported yesterday in the Washington Post. Tell our audience that you got I hate to say this on the air, Senator, but I can only interpret this as a death threat yesterday. You had to get the Capitol Police and the state police involved. Can you share with our audience what happened?
Yeah, sure, John. We have a gentleman down here in my district by the name of Andy Parker, and that name, Andy Parker, may be familiar to some because tragically he's the father of our slain reporter who was slain on the air, Allison Parker. Andy certainly is grieving, and I've had a couple of interactions with him previously, not recently. Certainly he's been striking out against me for my support of the Second Amendment, and other people for their support of the Second Amendment. He's called us gutless cowards. He said we had blood on our hands because the NRA supported us, etc. And that was fine. I figured if I was the target of his grief and that helped him through the process, then so be it. But yesterday morning I woke up and checked my inbox on my personal Facebook page only to find a message from Mr. Parker. I'd never communicated with him before by email, text, or otherwise. An unsolicited message which said, "I'm going to be your worst nightmare, you little bastard." And looking at that, I showed it to my wife. We discerned that, my worst nightmare would be someone harming my family. It did not say, "I'm going to be your worst political nightmare." So we interpreted that as a threat, and as we were obligated to do, we're supposed to report any threats that are made to us to the Capitol Police. So I immediately got on the phone and talked to Colonel Pike and certainly let him know what was going on, and also called my local sheriffs in my district to let them know what was going on. It was quite disturbing to all of us what this was about. You may also, John, know that Andy Parker is at least the first 10 seconds of the Bloomberg gun control ads that are being played in the Hal Parrish McPike race and the Sturtevant Gecker race. Right. This was very disturbing to me. He went on, I guess, to the Washington Post and said, "Oh, I didn't threaten him. It was a political threat." And of course, he's going to say that now, John. He's not going to admit that he'd want to kick my butt. But it was ironic that then last night, because I didn't have a very sleep-filled night, that in looking through my campaign Facebook page, that he had been trolling it that same night. So the night that he says he didn't make a physical threat to me, and I think I forwarded that to you, my friend. Right. He also found deep in my page from a month ago post, in all capital letters, basically threatened me with physical harm and violence, that he was going to kick my butt if he saw me on the street with his bare hands. So what we're seeing here is unfortunate. Certainly, I understand the grief. I think, though, this anger is irrational. And when it comes to this kind of stuff, I'm going to do whatever I can to protect my family. I think this is just getting out of hand and demonstrates that perhaps the person who is demonstrating himself to be a victim right now, and certainly he is a victim, I'm not taking that away from him, but there's some things that he needs to work through and not direct his anger so irrationally at people because they may believe in the Second Amendment or in one political view that's adverse to his own.
Well, Senator, I think you made all the right decisions, and, better safe than sorry. You certainly have to protect your family. You look at some of what Mr. Parker has threatened. This doesn't look to be the acts of a rational person who's thinking logically right now, certainly overstricken with grief. I mean, you can just imagine having seen his daughter basically assassinated live on TV. Very difficult to do. And look, I respect the grief that he's gone through and the grieving process, and I also respect his particular ideological or political view, if you will, on gun control measures. But when you start getting people, Bill, threatening you and your family over your position on a particular issue. Someone that has gone through a period of dismay that obviously from what he's writing in social media, screws have come loose. There's not a deep-seated reasonability going on. I mean, I think you did the right thing, Senator. I think you got to take this very seriously. And look, when you go to social media, you got to think about this. And you write in a public format, I'm gonna beat you up, kick your butt. I'm gonna be your worst nightmare, and it's not in a political context. I mean, that's pretty serious. It's one thing for somebody to call you up and get into it with you over the phone. It's another thing to sit down and put it on social media for the world to see. I don't think that's the actions of a rational man, Bill.
Well, I'm not a psychologist nor psychiatrist, so I can't make those judgments. But certainly it is a pattern, at least recently, where he has been, I guess they call it trolling, on other people's Facebook pages and leaving nasty messages in the parish. And also to find out this morning that he may have sent some pretty awful things to our delegate down here, Danny Marshall, through his Facebook page, which the authorities notified me this morning that they were looking into. This is just unfortunate to the nth degree. I respect that he has a differing view politically from me. He has every right to exercise that. But I, for my view, do not condemn him nor threaten him with physical violence or his family with physical violence because of his view. He has the right to the view. And when we change the discourse in this manner as he has, and in this way, what we're seeing then is that we're losing all of our civility, that civility that somehow we now are adrift as a society because we cannot even have reasonable differing discourse between men and women with regard to our views. It does not even allow for the opening of a conversation to find common ground. I did not solicit this from him. He decided that he was going to do this. This is steeped in some anger, which is misplaced. I had nothing to do with that horrible tragedy. My heart aches for him. I know what that's like. My wife and I lost our daughter shortly after childbirth. Certainly, I know what the loss of a child is, not to the degree and in the manner in which he suffered. For that, that is an unbelievable amount of grief that has to be there. But then to turn it into the things that he has lessens even his position with regard to his belief that we need gun control or restrictions on the Second Amendment. Because, if he's going to now make the argument, as most people in Chesterfield, Northern Virginia, are seeing probably over and over on a TV show, you do it from a position of strength, not weakening your position by making threats if people don't agree with you. Respectfully, let us have that discourse, but let us not disrespect each other to the point that we've lost all civility. To me, it is disturbing. I did not have a good night's sleep. I walked the house last night looking out the window because I took that threat very seriously. That didn't have to happen. He didn't need to make it this way. And quite frankly, I am just appalled and I'm stunned. I feel sorry for him. If he needs to grieve, I want him to have that grieving process. No one wants to take that away from him. But at the same time, leave my family out of it, please. And that's all I'm asking. Mm-hmm. And until, that happens, then I'll take the necessary steps to protect my family. And, after this, quite frankly, not that, one way or the other, but I'd never felt fear before. As a proud gun owner, I had never felt the need to have a concealed carry permit. Well, yesterday I went down to the courthouse and picked up applications for my wife and myself.
Right.
But I need to do that. I never thought I'd need to lock the front gate on my farm road. I had to do that. And that's when the discourse has changed to the point where we've lost all civility. So certainly we were disturbed. We continue to be. My wife is very upset, and my family should not have been be put in this position just because I'm a state senator. I'm a big boy, John. I can take it. When someone differs, and somebody calls me, as they have on the media and the blogs, and they hide behind their computer, they called me a pernicious asshat. I had to look up what pernicious meant. Okay? But when you turn it to something else, then you've crossed the line, and it's beyond the pale, and that I will not stand for. But if we allow this cyberbullying to occur, if we allow just this bullying to occur without the sharing of differing views and the respect for them, then we've lost all hope as a nation, as a republic, and as a democracy.
Look, no question. And Senator Stanley, there's a degree of hysteria that's going on out there right now. And, of course, in your case, the extreme, when you get a threat of harm to yourself and your family, or which could be interpreted as a death threat, perhaps. So you have to take these things seriously. But you've got a death threat that we dealt with earlier over this particular issue. Yesterday on WTOP radio, Terry McAuliffe, would appear to me, I heard it, had somewhat of a meltdown over questions about tolls and guns, not really liking the questions from the audience. A very non-McAuliffe reaction, almost borderline hysteria. What's the deal here?
Well, I think as you get into the last weeks of any election, a certain sense of urgency sets in. Even sometimes we say it's called the last week insanity of a campaign. I also think when it comes to the gun control or gun issue, that with as much money that has been poured into the state from New York through Michael Bloomberg, who's a one-issue person who reminds me, my father used to lovingly say, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you. I don't think he's saying it lovingly to us. He just wants to impose his will and his dollars to change what is a tradition and policy of strong Second Amendment support in Virginia. And I think what you're seeing there is a lack of control on the part of the governor, not of his emotions. I didn't hear the interview, and Governor McAuliffe is a very savvy man, both politically and otherwise. But I think what you're seeing is that whether it be the Senate Democrat caucus or Governor McAuliffe, that now the narrative is being controlled by outside forces, the message being controlled by outside forces. And so it's very frustrating when you're not controlling the message. And to close on gun control as somehow the issue that is most important to Virginians today, I think is misguided. And maybe I think if they had more control, they would not have closed in such a way with such an argument. There's so many more issues in Virginia that are important to us, our economy, putting Southside, Southwest Virginia back to work, protecting our coal interests, making sure that we're taking care of the congestion in Northern Virginia,
absolutely.
And not charging people $17.
$17 for a toll makes no sense. I'm out of time. I want to thank State Senator Bill Stanley for being with us. You can vote for him November 3rd, District 20. More info, StanleyForSenate.com. Hey, Bill.